Okay, good Erev Shabbos to all. We're up to Chaf Aleph on the base. We are 3 lines from the bottom. And the Chacham Rabbi Akiva had said that on a Shvuah you over b'chol shehu. So they were incredulous. The Chachamim, how do you find something that you over b'chol shehu? So he says, where do you find something that you speak that you bring a korban, right? So in other words, what's the conversation? If you look at let's back at the Mishnah, guys, on Yud Tes Amid Beis. So he says over kol shu. Do Rabbi Kiva. Amalei Rabbi Kiva. Heichem etzina ba'oichel kol shu shu chayiv. Where do you find that? Amalei Rabbi Kiva. V'chi heichem etzina b'medaber or maybe carbon. She said medaber maybe carbon. Yes, Kenny.
My friend is having an appendectomy in a half hour. Can we learn for Fush Lema?
Yeah, sure.
Chaim Yisrael ben Fruma Bella. HaKohen.
Chaim Yisrael what?
Chaim Yisrael HaKohen ben Fruma Bella.
From Abila?
Bella. Bella.
Okay, so we're learning for a Fush Lema for Chaim Yisrael HaKohen from Abila. And in addition, we're learning for a Fush Lema for Meir Moshe Aaron ben Devorah Naomi and Raphael ben Sarah. These are two boys who were in this terrible incident in Lakewood. One of them happens to be my cousin, Studi Slamwitz's kid.
Oh, wow.
Meir Moshe Aaron ben Devorah Naomi and Raphael ben Sarah, along with Chaim Yisrael HaKohen from Bela. Okay, here's Shevuous Tavis. So the two things were stated. One is what Rabbi Kiva said, and two, what the Chachamim and what the Chacham said and what Rabbi Kiva said. In other words, the Chacham said to Rabbi Kiva, where do you find less than the share? Where do you find the kol shu? And Rabbi Kiva said, where do you find medaber? And you go ahead and going to bring a carbon. So the Gemara is going to shtel sich and say, I'll give you places where you do see achila b'chol shehu. Even, where do you see it? I'll give you places. I'll give you 5 places where you see it. So Amalei Rabbi Kiva, Heichim Matzinu, 2 lines from the bottom on Chaf Aleph on the base. V'loi Bahari Nimala, an ant. We saw this, guys, in Masech Damakis in the 3rd parak, the first Nimala, an ant. An ant is less than a kazayas. It's a kol shehu. It's a kol shehu. Yet, so why did the Chacham say, where do you find a kol shehu that you chayiv? A Nimala is a kol shehu. Not only you chayiv, if you gedenks, guys, you chayiv 5 times, right? Chayiv 5 times. Says the Gemara, beria shiny. No. We meant something that's non-living. A living organism, we understand. A beria is a dava chashiv, guys. The point of a beria is a dava chashiv. When something's a dava chashiv, even less than a kazayas, you'll be over. So over here as well. So the mullah is shiny. We mean regular stuff. Fred Gemara vari hegdish. Hegdish is right. Hegdish, the chayra hegdish. If you have any hana from hegdish, chayiv even less than a kazayas. Fred Gemara and for the Gemara habin and shava pruta. In other words, you do need a share, and the share is what? The share is a shava pruta. In other words, it's an Indian of a hana. The achila is in the amount. You're being moil from hegdish. It's not. You can't have hana from hegdish. Kachi Hashem. So you're being moil from kachi Hashem. Memela the share is a shava pruta. Freding more about mefarish. A person went ahead and says, "I won't eat a kol shehu," and therefore it is chal. So we can say to Chachamim, what are you tining that what? That there's no such thing as a kol shu. If a person would make a shvua, to ask a kol shu would be asa. On that, the Gemara says, Mefarish nami kiberia. Mefarish is the same thing as a beria. Rashi says, Iu akshava the asri aleha. By him saying, guys, I'm asking a kol shu. What is he stating? It's a dava chashiv by me. It's the same thing. Just like a beria is a dava chashiv, by going ahead and saying that what? That it's he's mafarish in his neder a kolshu, he's machshav a kolshu. But stamazai, we don't find the kolshu. So we answered up. We answered up in the mullah, it's a beria. We answered up kotchim, it's a shavar puta. We answered up mafarish. Bahari afa. What about dirt? Right? Allah tifshit. So l'chayra. What about dirt? You make a sure that you won't eat dirt, and the havamin is that since it's not a barachila, it's you be chayiv b'kolshu. In other words, you tiny the chachamim, you never find the kol shehu. If a person would make a shvua not to eat dirt, pashtus the amount would be a kol shehu because dirt is not a barachila. Dirt is not something that you can ingest. Memela, if you do make such a shvua, the share would not be the share of achila; it will be a kol shehu. So you do find kol shehu, and therefore Allah tishit the Rava shvua shlayachal afa v'achal kama tishit adika kazayis. Let's be patient in the words of the Chachamim. It must be a kazayis since you never find the kol shehu in anything else. And for the Gemara, ki aminu b'midi debar achila. When did I say you don't find the kol shehu? That's by what? By something that you normally eat, right? So the four things we want successful: namala, hegdish, mefarish, afa, not a shaila. Bahari koinamis, right? You have the case of koinamis. Now koinamis, this fellas is a neder, and you say what you're saying is kikar zeh koinam alai. What you mean is you're comparing it to a carbon. Koinam, guys, again, for if we might remember from a sect in the Doran, you're being matfis in a carbon. That's what koinam is. Right? That's what koinam is. And l'chayra, koinamis would be what? B'chol shehu. If your person says koinam kika ze alai, the shear that you'll be usher in would be a kol shehu. Says Gemara, koinamis nami ki mefarish nami. Koinamis is like mefarish nami. 4 lines down Rashi. Koinamis is mefarish nami. If you say no maske bo shem achila, since you didn't mention shem achila, kol shehu kamar. In other words, this should be usher upon me like koinamis, like a carbon. You didn't say the word achila. If you didn't say the word achila, therefore it's shir kol shehu. So when the Chachamim retorted to Remeya, according to Rabbi Akiva, it's not by namala, it's not by namala, it's not by hegdish, it's not by mefarish, it's not by offer, and it's not by kainamas, because those are all exception. What was their retort? In a normal case, you always find the kazayas. So why by a shvur yechai b'kol shehu? What was Rabbi Akiva's retort? Where do you find the medaber that brings a carbon? Now, what's the Gemara going to say? I'll show you cases, fellas, of a medaber that does bring a carbon. So just like over here, we just want to figure out cases where kol shehu, you would be chayiv kol shehu. We're now going to bring cases where you would be chayiv. You'd be chayiv for what? For medaber. You'd be chayiv a carbon from medaber. So amal lehen heichim atzinam medaber maybe carbon. Shazem medaber maybe carbon. Says the Gemara v'loi v'hayim megadech. Megadef is a person who benches Hashem, and there's a machlokes whether you bring a carbon or not, but according to the day that you do bring a carbon, it comes out yedei dibur. Rabbi Akiva's mashma, the only time is by shvua. Megadef. Says the Gemara, midaber v'oisa ka'amrinon, v'hai midaber v'choitahu. What do I mean? When Rabbi Akiva said, I mean medaber means medaber, and you asa something through your dibur, you made something usher, and you'll bring a carbon on that. That's a unique chiddush. Ad kedei kach, that once you can asa yourself to bring a carbon, you will be asa b'kol shehu. I megadef means the carbon. Megadef, you bring a carbon. Why? Because you did an avera. You did an avera. That's a question about making sure is an avera or not. Okay. Nazir may be carbonai al diburoi. A nazir brings a carbon on his dibur. Says, I'm in a karminon. Nazir maybe carbon al devaro karminon. V'hai maybe carbon l'shture. I didn't write it right. V'hari nazir maybe carbon maybe carbonoi. Says the Gemara al diburo karminon. V'hai maybe carbon ashterui. I said that he's bringing a carbon because of his dibur. The Naz is not bringing the carbon because he was a Nazir. He's bringing the carbon to permit him to drink wine. So therefore, it's not a good sushtel. That's what I meant. V'hai maybe carbon l'shturei lechamrahu who the kamaisi. V'hari hegdish. You have a case of hegdish where a person goes ahead and is magda something and he's over on it. Right? You're going to be moil behegdish, fellas. Moil behegdish. You're going to bring a carbon asham mi'ilais. So you see, you could bring a carbon al yedei dibur. Says the Gemara, and for the Gemara, oisel atzmai karminon, vayoisel kol oilam kuloihu. Right? When you make something a shvua, it's unique to yourself. Again, I make a shvua not to eat bread. Okay, you can eat bread all you want. I can't eat bread, but you can. So the issa of eating bread is not universal; it's unique to me. Conversely, if you're magdish bread, then it's kodesh to everybody. So when Reb Kiva says, when I said medaber or maybe carbon, I meant unique to me and not universal. Okay, so now koinamois if here's the shaila, guys. Let's be preface the shaila. If you ask us something as koinomois, is there a din of me'ila in that or not? If you ask us something, right, as koinomois, is there a din of me'ila in that or not? If you say koinim is a lashon of hegdish, there is a din of me'ila, and then you would bring a carbon, or no, or not? That's the question. So, and for the Gemara about koinomois, l'chayre, there's a din of me'ila, so al yedei dibur, you're being a carbon. Says the Gemara, kasav ein mila b'koinomois. There's no mila b'koinomois. Rashi, very koinomois, shlei osra elu alav. It's only osra on himself. The machal menu, if he eats from it, kasal kedaitach, the mevi carbon me'ila, shal koinim loshen hegdeshu. So you see that while it's not universal, nonetheless it's osra on himself. So you would see, you are saying, where else do you find? You do find kainamis. The whole world can. It's not kainim to them, but it's kainim to me, and I would bring a carbon on it. And for the Gemara, a mila b'kainamis. The loy karina. Why not? The loy karina mikatshi Hashem. In order to be moil, it has to be you're having enough from hegdish from kachi Hashem. In this case, it's not kachi Hashem. Shrei chulin hu eitzel kaladam, because everyone else mat it is chulin. Okay, so therefore, regarding the two clauses of the Mishnah, the Chachamim's question to Rabbi Akiva, where do you find kol shehu? You don't find kol shehu. And Rabbi, and he said, because it's shua. The Gemara said, 1 second, I'll find you kol shehu, and gave 5 examples, the Mullen, and Kodesh, and Afar, and so forth. And then we had Rabbi Akiva's retort, where do you find Medaber being a carbon? So I go, what are you talking about? You could find cases of Medaber being a carbon. It can be what? It can be Megadef, it can be a Nazir, it can be Kainamis, and we answered all of those questions. Okay. Weiter. Amarava. Machloikis is bistam. Machloikis between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim, if you make stam a shvua. Aval mefarish, but if you go ahead and say, I'm making a shvua not to eat kol shehu, there be a kol b'kol shehu. Even the Chachamim would be moided to Rabbi Akiva that the share is b'kol shehu. My time, but what's the reason? Mefarish nami keberia dami. Mefarish is what? It's like a beria. A beria is a davar choshev. By you going ahead and explaining that your neder is, that Yeshua is b'chol shehu, you're stating that kol shehu is choshev to you. And the mela, once it's choshev, it's what? It's going to be yivri chayiv. That's one case. Again, you're giving in chashivas, kiberia, just like a beria it's a davar choshev, of course, it's alive. Over here, guys, the maforish is the fact that you said a shvur that you won't eat a kol shehu. By you saying the lashon of kol shehu, you're being machshav a kol shehu, even though it's less than a kazayas. For Amar Rava, another statement of Rava, machloikis b'shaloi oichel. Machloikis is where you didn't eat, but you said the lashon of shvur that I won't eat. What about shvur shloi etoim, a shvur that I won't taste? A shvur that I won't taste. The viakol b'kol shehu, right? Everyone's is b'kol shehu, yeah. There's no pshita. So ma'ad tema, litam nami kedami inchi. When a person tells you, "Kam nema bissel," it never means what? Just putting it in your mouth. I think this. I take a bite. What they have these. What I don't do it, but there's a toyamehel l'kavod Shabbos. How many people eat l'taimel l'kavod Shabbos, eat a kol shehu of kugel? Yes, Reb Nassim. Yeah. So we have a walking example on the screen of this Gemara. There it is. Kidiyami Inshi. Go ahead and be Toyim Abissal. So you might think, what does Toyim Abissal mean? A kazayis chach kemash malon Toyim Abissal main Toyim Abissal, and therefore that's the chiddush. Okay, now the Gemara gets difficult. Okay, we're going to have a cryptic brisa. We're going to have 3 ways machloikis had a learn pshat in this brisa. Amar Papa, machloikis, the machloikis between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. That Rabbi Akiva says kol shehu, and the Chachamim say kezayis. That's only b'shvuos. That's only if the Isser came about through the lashon of shvua. When the Isser came about the lashon of shvua that you won't eat, Rabbi Akiva says kol shehu, and the Chachamim say a kazayis. Aval b'koinomis. If the Isser came about through the lashon of koinim kikazu alai, he said the lashon of koinim, Divrei Akol B'Kol Shehu. Everyone would say what? B'Kol Shehu. Why? As we saw above, because you didn't use the Lashon of Achila. You didn't use the Lashon of Achila. You said this is koinim to me. And that's mashma afilu kol shehu. You didn't use the Lashon of Achila. So let's get straight. Says the Tanakama, Shevuous is the machlokes. Koinam, everyone agrees kol shehu. Even the Chachamim agree kol shehu. My timer, koinam es nami, kibid like kamatka shmad achila. Since you didn't mention achila, kidim mefarvish nami, you machshiv it. Okay, that's the statement. That's the statement of the Chachamim. The machlokes is what by Shevuous, but by konamis, everyone would hold what? Kol shehu. Meisive, I have a brisa. Okay, so that was our papa's. Now we're going to ask on a papa from a brisa. Shnei koinamos mitztarfin. If you said koinim on one kikar and koinim on another kikar, they would be mitztarif to the share of a kazayas. There's your question right there. If you're telling me koinim is b'kol shehu, why do you need siruf, right? So again, we'll continue the brisa, but stop right here. There's your question. Yura Papa said that it's b'kol shehu, and everyone agrees. Over here, you have an often a brisa, Yura Papa and Amoira, you can't disagree. It says shnei koinomis mitztarfos, pashtus. You have two things that you acid al yedei koinim, and the mitztarif that what? That you be chayiv b'kazayis and not kol shehu. That's the kasha. Continues the brisa. Shtei shvuos, a mitztarfin, a mitztarfos. But if you have two kikorim that you acid al yedei shvua, they won't be what? They won't be mitztarif. So by two konomos, you went ahead, you said you had two kikros, and you asked it through the lashon of koinim. There'd be mitztarif, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, Rashi says. And shtei shvuos, if you asked it two kikorim of bread through shvua, they would not be mitztarif. So again, you asked it two breads, one you asked it the lashon koinim, one you asked it shvua. Either way, you're not eating. If you would eat by koinim by both, it would be mitztarif. If you eat by shvua, it would not be mitztarif. Okay, you have the question already. Rabbi Omer, Rabbi says, continues on, koinam is kishvuous. Koinam is like shvuous, pashtus, it's not mitztarif. It's not mitztarif, they don't combine. Good? Okay, so we have a machlokes in the brisa between the Tanakama and Rabbi whether koinam is mitztarif or not. Like the Tanakama it is, like Rabbi it's not. Getting back to us, the machlokes between you, Rav Papa, said that the machlokes is by Shevuous, but by konomis, everyone holds kol shehu. If konomis is chayiv b'kol shehu, from the words of the Tanakama, lamali l'tzarif. Why do you have to go ahead and be mitztarif? Why do you have to go ahead and be mitztarif? Good. Now, guys, what's the reason it was a mitztarif? Because you didn't use the lashon of achila, correct? Remember, we said above. Guys, the lashon of the Gemara. Even like kamatka shmod achila, since you didn't mention the name of achila, since you didn't mention the name of achila, it's not mitztarif. Since you didn't mention the name of achila, it is mitztarif. It combines together. Okay. Lenny, we're chaf beis amid aleph. I'm going to go over it just to cover you to get you in, or else you're going to be lost for a little while. Okay, so. Rav Papa says it then. Look parallel to the Taisus Ravina Omar. Ravina Omar. Okay? So we're dealing with answering through a lashon of how did you answer? You made a piece of bread answer upon you. So we had a machlokes in the Mishnah by Shvua. Rabbi Akiva said it's asa b'chol shehu. You don't need a kazayis. Nacham said kazayis. That was the machlokes. Rav Papa is now qualifying that machlokes and saying it depends how you made that bread aser. If you made the bread asa b'shvua, then there's a machlokes that the chacham say kazayis. If you made the bread asa al yedei the lashon of koinim, comparing it to a korban koinim kikazu alai, then you'll go ahead and what the chacham will be moed b'kol shehu. Why? Because you didn't mention the lashon of achila. Achila is mashma eating of kazayis. It's synonymous. Achila and kazayis are synonymous. Since you just said koinim, therefore you don't need the chacham will be maida, you'll be asa b'kol shehu. That was the statement of Rav Papa. The Gemara now is challenging Rav Papa from a brisa. The brisa says if you have two pieces of bread and you say this is koinim and this is koinim, they're both aser. If you eat a little bit from one, a little bit from the other, they would combine for a kazayas. And that's the problem right then and there for Rav Papa, because Rav Papa said, you don't need a kazayas. Everyone said kol shehu. However, Shevuous, they don't combine. Says Reb Meir, in both cases, they don't combine. Okay. Meanwhile, we have the kasha. Let's see the kasha. Visal kedaitach. Okay, visal kedaitach. If the mesa, we have a few lines down. Before it gets wide, 3 lines up, 4 lines up. Visal kedaitach chayiv b'kol shehu. If you're going to tell me, like Reb Papa, that the lashon of koinim, you chayiv b'kol shehu, lamali litzarif. Why do you have to combine the two? Kol shehu from one, you're over. And for the Gemara, I'll tell you why. The Amar achila mizu alai koinim, achila mizu alai koinim. You know what he said, guys? He said the lashon of achila. What happens as soon as they say lashon of achila? It goes ahead and engages kazayas. You said the lashon koinim. So in other words, had you said koinim alone, the halacha is like Rav Papa, that what? Kolshu, everybody. Since you said the lashon of achila, then they would be mitzaref. You would need siruf. They would be mitzaref. No, if you ate a kazayas from one or kazayas from the other, of course you'd be a chayiv. But if you eat a little bit from one, a little bit from the other, then you need a kazayas because you said the lashon of achila, and koinim is not lashon of achila. Ihachi amay mitzarfois, soif zil lahacha lecha shira, v'zil lahacha lecha shira. Guys, outside. I said, what did I say? That this loaf of bread should be asa to eat like koinim. So what were you saying? That from this piece of bread, it's asa to eat a kazayas. Again, I went ahead, I took this piece of bread, and I said, this piece of bread is oichel like a koinim. I said, this piece of bread is oichel like a koinim. If you eat a little bit from one, a little bit from the other, you didn't eat a kazayas from one. Your lashon was mashma achila. I'm going to eat a kazayas from one and a kazayas from the other. You can't take a half and a half. Kasha, you're telling me, Reb Papa, koinim, everyone says kol shehu. You're answering, you said koinim, but you added the word achila. What does the word achila do? It says kazayas. So what did you say? A kazayas from this one, a kazayas from this one. A half and a half is a kazayas from both. You need a kazayas from each one. As I read the Gemara. Taina. If you're telling me that you use the lashon of achila, amay mitzarfois, why do they combine? Saif zil lahacha. If you go to one loaf of bread, leka shira, you don't have the kazayas. V'zil lahacha, and you go to the other one, leka shira, you don't have kazayas. Good, guys, we're good. And for the Gemara, the amar achila mishteim alai. Achila from both of them is upon me. In other words, you not only said achila mizu, you said mishteyem, you coil them together. But since you said the lashon of achila, it engages the need for a kazayas and not a kol shehu. So Rav Papa's helped serve so far. Again, the attack on Rav Papa from the Brisa that says the mitzarif, we're saying the lashon of achila. When did Rav Papa say his din? You only said the lashon of koinim. Let's not lose sight of what we're doing over here in the difficulty of the text. Rav Papa said that the koinim is kol shehu, even according to Chachamim. It says mitzarif, which is mashma, you need a full kazayas. Says the Gemara, of course, you use the lashon of achila, and technicality, you said shneim to be coiled together. But the teretz is that Bryce is speaking about the lashon of achila. Rav Papa only meant to use the lashon of koinim. Says the Gemara, okay, I like koinim. The kavase gabe shvuous. So what happened? In other words, in the Brisa, guys, we says two dinim. Koinim is mitzarif, and Shevuous is not. So what's the case of Shevuous? You said shvua the Amar shvua shalei oichel mishteihem. You made a shvua that I won't eat. Rashi says lashon mizu, amayim mitzarfin. Guys, outside. Koinim is mitzarif, Shevuous is not. What do you mitzarif? Two loaves of bread that you created an Isser on. The first one you created the Isser using the Lashon of Koinim. The second one you created using the Lashon of Shvua. The first one was telling that you used the Lashon of Achila, and you said Achila Shteihem, and therefore, because it's like one, and therefore you can be mitzvah a half a kazayas, half a kazayas. What's the case of Shvua? It must be synonymous. A Shvua that you won't eat from both of them, a kazayas. Why are they mitzaref? What's the reason they're not mitzaref? It doesn't make any sense. In both cases, you create a lashon of achila, and by koinim it's mitzvah. Of course, you will koilel. Also over here, it should be mitzvah. Got the kasha? Gemara says a super lumdis. And for the Gemara, guys, and for the Gemara, Amayim and Starfin, Omer of Pinchas, 2 lines down. Guys, listen. Omer of Pinchas, shiny Shevuous, mitoich shechalukas lechatois, aimit starfois. First maintas. What does that mean? We're going to see, fellas, if a person makes a shua that he won't eat a wheat bread, a barley bread, a spelt bread, he be chayiv. He uses the lashon shvua once. I make a shvua not to eat dunt. Guess what? You chayiv 3 times. So you made a shvua over here. You won't eat this loaf and you won't eat that loaf. You chayiv twice. The fact that you chayiv a chatos on each one is mechalik that they're not mitzdaref. By koinam, you're only going to be chayiv once. Therefore, it can be mitzdaref together. By shvua, says Rav Papa, since shvua is mechalik le'inyan chatois, we're going to see Rashi in a second, and the pasuk that quotes it. Therefore, that's mechalik, since they're 2 separate chatos, guys, it's like 2 separate shvuas that are not koiled together. That's the difference. Why? By koinim is mitzdaref the shir, and by shvua it's not. Let's see Rashi, guys. Along Rashi, bakashmak. Mitoich shechalukois lechatois. Mitoich sheshtei kikrois halalu, since these 2 loaves of bread, chashuvois shtayim le'inyan chatos b'shvua zu, right? Since they're 2 chatos in this shvua, im amar shvua shaloi oichel mizu umizu. Notice the Gemara said mishtayin. Rashi says mizu and mizu, right? V'ochel kezayis mizu v'kezayis mizu behelam echad. In one halama, in one state of forgetfulness, if you would have eaten from each one a loaf, chayiv shtayim, you'd be chayiv 2 chatois. Kititnan lekamon, as we're going to see later on. Shvua shloi oichel paschitin. He says shvua, one lashon shvua. I won't eat wheat bread. Pas soirin, barley bread. Pas kusmin is spelt. Guys, remember how you know it's spelt awry? Here's my mnemonic. The samech is spelt. It's very good mnemonic. You always you mix up Shebal Shul, Kismain, Dishain, right? So Shebal Shul, is oats. Dishain by process elimination is going to be rye. But the way to remember spelt, guys, it's a good mnemonic from a good Rabbi. Kusman, Lashon, Samech is spelt, right? For Achal, then chayiv al kol achas, v'achas. You be chayiv one on each one. Guys, so watch. One lashon shvua, you divide into 3. So too over here, when you said shvua, and on this one, mizu, it's 2. So since if you would eat bahalom echas in one forgetfulness, both you be chayiv chatois, they're considered 2 separate kikaros that can't be mitzdaref. Just like the spelt rye, spelt wheat and barley are 3 separate shvuos, despite the fact you lost shvuah once. Who are then over here? Masha enkai by kainamos, which would not be divided. You only be chayiv 1, an asham, right? If you're over on it, if you hold yesh mila b'kainamos, or lashon of neder, you be yachal devara, you be chayiv. Right? Oil of yours is only on shvuah, guys. Right? Anyway. Where's the source for this? Umaysinale b'toras kahanim mivihoya ki yesham la'achas me'ela. If yesham achas lashon la'achas me'ela l'chayver kol achas v'achas. V'chi kama nami mizu shvua from this one and this one. Shtei shvuas chashivi. It's considered 2 shvuas. Hilkach ki ochel mizu chatzi shir umizu chatzi shir ein mitzdarfos. They don't combine. Avol koinamos ein chalukos lashamos. Again, koinam, guys, you're not going to get chatas by a koinam, and most you're going to be in asham elos. You have to be very careful. You throw around carbon. Shvua is carbon oil of yored, right? Shvua is bitoy. Koinamis if yesh mili b'koinamis, it's going to be what an asham elos. Lamandom yesh mili b'koinamis. Dimnene v'chazav v'nene behelam echad. If you have a no twice in one alama, you only achadhu mechay. You only chay once. The kula chada meila kidit 9. Okay, So now we can stop over here. Okay, guys. So let's see what let's take account what we just did. Okay, guys, outside. Said Reb Papa to qualify our Mishnah we had a machloikis by Shevuous. Said Rabbi Akiva, if you're over on your Shvuah, it's a kol shu. Says the Chachomim, it's what it's gezayis. Comes along the Amoira of Papa and says, 1 second, the Chachomim only argue by Shvuah, but by what? By Koinam, they would agree it's kol shu. Fred the Gemara, if Koinam are mitzdarif, Shvuahs are not mitzdarif. Why do you need sira for if you have kol shu? And for the Gemara, because you use the lashon of achila. Again, that's the key. You use the lashon of achila. Once you use lashon of achila, you enter the world of kazayas. For the Gemara, if that's the case by Shevuous, also you enter the world of kazayas, and therefore let's be mitzdarif the two. And for the Gemara, Shevuah is unique. Since you would have been over, if you would have eaten from this one and this one, you'd be behelam echad. You'd be chayiv two separate chatois. It's mechalik that they're not mitzdarif together. Two separate averis. This is one avera, one chatas. This is another avera chatas. You're not combining the two. Mashenkin kainamas. If you hold yesh milik b'kainamas and you're being an ashram me'ilas for having a na, even if you had a na from this one and this one halama, you'd only be chayiv one. So mamela the hana is mitzdarif. It's the share of a shavaputa over here. Since you're speaking about me'ilah, you'd be chayiv. You would mitzdarif the share of a shavaputa. Kishmak, kishmak, kishmak. Okay. So far, Rav Papa held good. No problems. Good. Says the Gemara Vaita. Ihachi. You're telling me like Reb Pinchas, right? Ihachi. Reb Meir Oimer, Koinamois Kishvuos. Again, we're learning Pshat in the Brisa. If you're telling me Pshat in the Brisa, you use Lashon of Achila, and you're telling me like Reb Pinchas that by Shvuah it's mitzvah. You're telling me Koinamois is not mitzdarif like Shvuah. If you use Lashon of Achila, why not? Bishlema Shevuous, Hoil v'chalukas l'chatois. Bishlema, I can answer like Rav Bat, like Rav Pinchas, and in other words, Rav Meir said they're both not mitzdarif. But elakainamis am I loy? Why not? Why not? You don't have a svara, why not? Guys, once you use the lashon of achila, it enters the world of kizayis. So why by kainamis is not mitzdarif? You don't have Reb Pinchas's chatois to be right, and yet Reb Meir says in both cases it's not mitzdarif. Why is kainamis not mitzdarif? Gevaldige kasha. And for the Gemara epuch, switch it around. Now, guys, be aware when you switch around, sometimes you help out this one, but you create another problem in another place. So epuch, Reb Meir oimer shvuas kekainamis. What does that mean? Shevuous is like kainamis, pirish, just like kainamis are mitzdarif, who hadin Shevuous are mitzdarif. Guys, what are you going to tell me? How could Shevuous be mitzdarif? Reb Pinchas says what? Reb Pinchas says what? That the chatas is mechalik to two. For less like the Reb Pinchas, and Reb Meir doesn't know the Reb Pinchas. He doesn't know the Reb Pinchas. So let's go back over to Brisa now. Meisivei shnei koinamis mitzdarfin because he used the lashon of achila. They're mitzdarf the share because he used the lashon of achila. Shtei shvuos ein mitzdarfis. Why? I use lashon of achila because Rav Pinchas is din that it's mitchalik lechatois, right? Rav Meir Omar not koinamis kishvuos, rather shvuos kikoinamis. Shvuos like koinam. Just like koinem is mitzdarif, who adin Shevuah is mitzdarif. Reb Pinchas, Reb Meir can argue with Reb Pinchas. He doesn't hold Reb Pinchas. That's the way to work at the Brisa. Rav Papa's held serve. Everyone's happy in Daf Yomi land. Good. Notice I said Daf Yomi land. It's not. It wasn't Daf Yomi. Nothing's partial over here. Says the Gemara Vaita. Ravina Ama another teretz. Ravina Ama. Ravina is going to throw his hat into the ring. You gave this teretz lashon of achila, and therefore it's mitzdarif. Ravina Ama kikom Rav Papa le'inyan malchus. When did Rav Papa say that what? Rav Papa said that what? B'koinamis is called shehu. He never meant by to be mitzdarif to two what for a korban. He meant to mitzdarif what for malchus. Rashi, 3 lines on the bottom. Ki omer Papa b'koinamis kol shehu lemalchus kamar. The chi tanya hidim it start from the brisa linyan carbon meila. Let's see if the katani lav lekazayis el l'shava pruta. Two different animals, literally. You're asking on Rav Papa from a brisa. Said Rav Papa that the chachamim amoida by koinim that the shir is called shehu. That's linyan malchus. You have a brisa that it's mitzdarif, meaning, and you don't need the share of a kol shehu. It's mitzdarif the inyan carbon shavar pruta. If you have less than a shavar pruta from one and less than a shavar pruta from another, and they mitzdarif to shavar pruta, you'll be chayiv to bring what? A carbon. You'll be chayiv to bring a carbon asham ilais. So they're speaking about two different things. And again, guys, this goes according to the opinion that yesh meila b'kainamis, that there would be a carbon mila for kanamis. So a new teretz. This guy's against a different teretz. No kimta. You're not speaking about the lashon of achila. You speak the lashon of koinim and Shevuous vat. And there's a reason why Shevuous it's not mitzdarif. Why? Because Shevuous we're not speaking about meila at all. We're not speaking about like ki kamer papa linya malchus ki tanya he of tzirif linya carbon. To be in shavar pruta, you need a shavar pruta. Says the Gemara, l'meimer the sav rabbanon yesh meila b'kainamos. Okay, now, who said Shnei Kanamis Mitzdarfins, the Chachamim? Rameya disagreed, right? So Stam, the people talking to Tanakam, is the Chachamim. If you're telling me that it's Mitzdarf for Shava Pruta, it's like you must hold Yesh Me'ila B'Kainamais. And therefore, if there's a din of Me'ila B'Kainamais, you're shayach to bring a carbon Ashra Me'ilais. Good? That's Rabbi's teretz. What happens if I can prove to you the Chachamim hold ein mila b'kainamis? Then you have a problem. Now, what does Reb Meir hold, guys? Reb Meir holds that what? He must hold ein mila b'kainamis because he said that what? He wasn't made with anything. He said Shevuous is like kainamis, right? It must be Shevuous is what no? He said kainamis is like Shevuous, so it must be that what? Just like a shvua is not mitzdarif. It must be that what inyan meila. It's also not mitzdarif because there's no mila. So on one hand, we have the chacham say kainamis is mitz. This is Ravina's teretz. They're dealing with is a din of meila or not, right? So over here, you're telling me that kainamis the chacham says mitzdarif is shava pruta. When Rameya says koinim is like shua, just like shua is not mitzdarif, it must be Rameya holds that koinim is not mitzdarif because he also says no din of mila. Keep that in mind. Says the Gemara. L'meimed the savir rabbanon, a few lines to the bottom. L'meimed the savir rabbanon yesh mila b'kainamos. There's a din of mila b'kainamos. V'tan Tanya Brisa kikazu hegdish. This kika's hegdish v'achla bein hu whether he eats it, bein chavera whether his chavera eats it. Moal. There's a din of mila, guys. He was magdish it. It's kodesh. L'fikach yesh lo pidyon. Since it's kodesh, it has kedushas damim. It doesn't have kedushas aguf l'chayra. And therefore, you could be what? You could be paidit. No problem, yes? Guys, kodesh is universal. Just like it's usher on me, it's usher on everyone on the screen. Therefore, since it's universally usher, you can be paida. Therefore, if I eat it, I'm mild. Therefore, if you eat it, you're mild. This is no chiddush. However, kikazu alai hegdish. You said kikazu alai hegdish. What did I say? Not everyone on the screen, fellas. Only moi. Only me, Bali Hegdish, right? So now it's usher to me. Who moal? If I go ahead and use it, I'd be moal behegdish. Chaver lo moal, but you guys wouldn't, because it's only what? Usher to me, not to you. It's not a universal hegdish. I said lashon of a lie. Lefikach ein le pidyon. Fellas, there's no pidyon. You know why? It's not really kodesh. What is it? It's usher. It's usher on laser stern. You guys, you love this. Guys, pidyon is what? I'm isolating, that's the word, isolating from hegdish, right? But if it's, when I say a lie, it's asa to me, it means asa. There's no pidyon on issa. It's no, hegdish. Where it's kodesh, I'm redeeming it from its state. This state has not changed. It's asa on laser stern. Therefore, in the pidyon, diver Reb Meir. These are the words of Reb Meir, right? These are the words of Reb Meir. The chachamim oimrim, bein hu ubein chaveiroi, lo yimoyel. He's not moyel. Now, fellas, when Reb Meir said that I would be moil, it must be yesh mila b'kainamis, because asar me alone. Now v'chachamim ma'imrim bein hu bein chaveiroi loy moil lefi she'ein meila b'kainamis. So if I went ahead and asked this, I'm not moil either. But here's a problem. You just told me, fellas, the chachamim hold that what? That you told me that what? The chachamim hold that kainamis, there's a din of mila. Again, what was Ravina's teretz, fellas? That koinim is mitzaref le'inyan shava pruta, right? Guys, koinim is, you have to look at me. This is again. Koinim is mitzaref le'inyan shava pruta. Shava pruta is not a achila term, it's a me'ila term, right? Therefore, when Papa said his din, he was speaking about malchus lekazayas. The Bryce is speaking about a whole different animal. It's speaking about hegdish. When you say it's mitzarif, it must be that what? That is din of mila b'kainamis. That's the chachamim who said it. That's the chachamim who said it. Yes. Now in this brisa where I said upon me it's kodesh, I'm not moil. You know why? Because ein mila b'kainamis. 1 second. The chachamim just told me before yesh mila b'kainamis. Now you tell me ein mila b'kainamis. That's our problem. That's our problem. The chachamim oimrim amid beis bein hu bein chaveiroi loimal lefi she'ein mila b'kainamis. Says the Gemara, you know what you do? Epoch, switch it around. Echad zeh ve'echad zeh loimal. Why? Lefi she'ein mila b'kainamis. Divrei Reb Meir. The chachamim oimrim hu mal v'chaveiroi loimal. Guys got a problem now. What was that teretz? Let's go back in time. Go back to the Ravina, go back to the Brisa. Go back to the Brisa, fellas. Meisivei, Shnei Koinamis mitztarfin, because yesh mila b'koinamis. Shtei Shevuous say mitztarfin. Okay, now, Reb Meir oimer, Koinamis kishvuous. So why? Reb Meir obviously must hold what? Ein mila. Ein mila, just like Shevuous not mitztarif. Okay, guys, you're good. Guys, so good. Now look at me. Chacham said yesh mila. The Chacham said ein mila. Reb Meir said ein mila. For the Gemara, I have a brisa that says what? Chacham say ein mila. Says the Gemara, you know what? Switch around. The Chachamim say ein mila, and Reb Meir says yesh mila. 1 second. If you switch around, good. You saved yourself on the Chachamim, but you just messed up Reb Meir. Reb Meir said over here that what? Koinim is like shvua, that ein mila. Now by switching it around, you're saying yesh mila. So you saved the chachamim, but you just threw a Meir under the bus. You didn't gain anything. Again, we're switching this brisa, this brisa in the Dorim, to say that the chachamim obviously hold ein mila. Then we have to switch it around. So because we held, you said before yesh mila. So back by us, guys. Back on the Yomid base. Epoch. Echad zeh, the echad zeh loy moyal, lefi she'ein mila b'koinamos, divrei Reb Meir. 1 second. Reb Meir says, ein mila b'koinamos, chomam hu moyal v'chaver loy moyal. Yihachi Reb Meir oime koinamos k'shvuous, right? He says koinamos is like shvuous. El koinamos, it's the rufe hudle mitztarfo, ha'me'ila isbuhu. You're telling me that what? It's not mitztarif, but there would be the in a mila? You just told me like Reb Meir, there's no din a mila. Ivram a mila, a mila b'kanam is klal. Says Gemara, you're right. The devrei of the Rabbanan kamalu. You see, answering the words of the Chachamim. Lididi, according to me, a mila b'kainamis. There's no mila b'kainamis at all, and therefore, why did I say kanamis like Shevuous? It's because I'm answering you. Liditchu oidel mias, the kanamis kishvuous. You who hold yesh mila should be moida that kanamis like Shevuous. Rabbanan Shevuous ikad Rab Pinchas. Shevuous ain't mitzdarfa because of Rab Pinchas, because chatos is mitzdarf. Chatos is mechalik. Kanamis lekad Rab Pinchas. Kanamis doesn't have what the chilik of Rab Pinchas. So again, the bottom line is Rab Papa is held serve. Rab Papa is din. 2 ways to answer it, guys. Either lashon of achila by koinim, and therefore once you said achila, it's shayach kezayis. Ravina's teretz that what? That one Rev Papa is speaking about achila linyan malchus, that it's not mitzdarif, that it's mitzdarif, and And the Bryce is speaking about le'inyan what? Kainamis le'inyan shava pruta. Machloikas yesh mila ein mila, and then depends upon the gersa. The first gersa is the Chacham hold yesh mila. The second gersa they hold ein mila. And okay, and Papa and Rav Meir would hold ein mila. Amarabba. Shvuah shlei oichel. A person makes a shvuah that he won't eat. But achal afar, and he eats what? He eats afar, eats shmutz. Pata. He's not over in a shvuah. Okay, why? Because it's not a barachila. Again, by the Darim Shavuos, we go after Lashon B'nai Adam. Person, when he says he won't eat something, he doesn't mean dirt. Boy, Rava, Shavuos Shloi Oichel Afar. Let's say he mentioned Afar, Shavuos that he won't eat Afar. Bikama, what's the share? So this was on the Amid Aleph, right? This is where it sounds familiar. Kivin the Amar Shloi Oichel Daite HaKazayis. Since he used the word Ochel, it's das on a Kazayis like every other. Idilma Kivin the Lav Midi the Ochel and she who the Cholshu. So along the Shashayla, when you say you're not going to eat on something that's not normally eaten, do you mean normally eating the amount, or since it's not normally eaten, even a Cholshu? And the Gemara says Teku. Boy Rava, Shvuah Shlei Oichel Chartzin. Chartzin is the infamous grape seeds, right? That we're familiar with from the Sechta Nazir. Nazir can't eat chartzin. So it seems chartzin by itself is not eaten, but it's like it's part of a taruvis, fellas. It's part of a mixture. So kivin the misachle al yedei taruvis daite ekazayis. Since it's something that's eaten al yedei taruvis, it's a lashon of achila and it's a gazayis. Oidilma kivin loy be'ena achle inshi. Since people don't eat it alone, daite amashahu. Maybe it's dasavad is on a mashahu. On that, the Gemara says teku as well. We have to wait for Elio and Novi to come and go ahead and answer the question. Now, the next question is predicated upon if you hold the share of a chatzin as a kazayas. Okay, we didn't answer the shaila, but imtim sulaima. Imtim sulaima means if you're going to say this, I have another shaila. If you're going to say that the share of chatzin is a kazayas, despite the fact that it's normally eaten a less of an amount in taruvis, what about the following din? Boy Ravashi, Nazir Shamar, and Nazir says, Shvuah Shlei Oichel Chartzin. He makes a shvuah that he won't eat what? A grapeseed. Bikama, what's the share? The Kim the Kezayas Isur Deraisahu, Kika Mishtaba, Ahatera Kamishtaba, Bidate Amashahu, Idil Makim the Amash Shlei Oichel Daite Akazayas. So guys, outside. You just will push it to Shiloh. A Chartzin, the share of Chartzin is what? Is a Kezayas. A Nazir is not allowed to eat Chartzin. A nos is mushba ma'oimid v'arsinai not eat chartzin. So when he makes that shvuah, it is sheer on the kazayas and the shvuah is not chal at all, or is sheer on what he possibly could eat, which is what? Less than the kazayas, and then the shvuah would be chal. Because that's not asa. Kol shvuah is not asa. Again, he's mushba ma'oimid v'arsinai not eat chartzin. Imtim saloima, the sheer of chartzin zachila, if you make such a shvuah, is his das on a kazayas, and therefore it won't be a shvuah because he's mushmanati a chartzin based upon the previous shaila that we're imtim saloima paishit. Or no, his share is on the het, the way he's able to eat. He's able to eat less than the kazayas, and therefore he's answering a kol shu, and the shvuah would be chal. That's the murder shaila. Nazar shom shvuah shloi oichel chartzin bekama. The kim the kazayas yisur the raisahu ki kamishtaba ateru kamishtaba v'daite yamashahu idil makim the amash shloi oichel daite kazayas. Maybe his das is on the kazayas. Tashma. Shvuah shloi oichel. You make a shvuah not to eat. The ochel nevelus to trefish gatzim ramashim. Now, just as the nazir can't eat a chartzin, we can eat nevela trefish gatzim ramashim. Chayev. To be chayev on the shvuah of. Now, aren't we mushma v'ayim rasinai not to eat that, guys? Yeah, this sounds familiar. We had it earlier. Reb Shimon Paita, Reb Shimon says Yipata. Vavinamba, am I chayiv? Mushma v'omer Sinai who? We all swore at Sinai what? To not eat the stuff. And ain't shvuah chal al shvuah, right? I told Heshti the other day, ain't shvuah chal al shvuah. It's important you say it in Septa Shvuahs, guys. Ain't shvuah chal al shvuah. Since we're mushma from our Sinai not to eat the little critters, so therefore what? It's therefore, it's how can you be chayiv? So Rabu Shmuel, both Rabbi and Shmuel, we said earlier the Amit Travayu, the koil devarim hamutarim devarim musarim. Now it's a koil, guys. since you said you won't eat everything, everything means the things that you could eat and things that you can't eat. The things that you can't eat are incorporated in what? In the shvua that, since the shvua is schal on the things that you normally could eat, it's schal on the things that you normally couldn't eat. Guys, chatzi share is not min Torah according to, you're not mushban chatzi share. Late Reish Lakish. We're going to see it. We saw it. It's the end of Yuma. Well, the chatzi share is deraisa not. So he says, Reish Lakish says that you're not mushban chatzi share. Memela, that's how you'd find the case of what Yeshua on shkatzim ramashim. V'alibid rabbanon. Now, who says what? That you need a kazayis, the adam oisav atzmai b'kolshu. That a person would asa b'kolshu. Ivan nevela the mushba v'ayim v'asinai who the chichartzin l'gabi nazir damya. We have nevela and treifa is the same thing as a nazir. The time of the parish. The reason why you chayiv like Rishlak is pachas mekazayis is because you said right. Holei parish. If you didn't explain, daite akazayis. The das is on a kazayis. Shma mina. The shear, guys, shmamina, the shear of what? The shear of a nazir would be a kazayis. The shmamina, yeah, this das is on a kazayis. Shmamina, the shear is on a kazayis. In other words, the only way, we have a parallel. The veils and treifis, the chartzin. The veils and treifis, how you chayiv leireish lakish? Because you said less than the shear. Mashen Kennedy said the full shear, you'll be mushba v'oimed. So who adin by the chartzin, guys, you will be mushba v'oimed on a full shear. Right, so therefore, in answer to Yeshaila, when he made the Kavavas' Kavana, his Kavana was on the full share, and the Mela Wadi would not be Chal. Says the Gemara, Ella Tifshit the boy Rava, Shvur Shlei Oichel Offer, Bekama, Tifshay de Adika Kazayis, Nanavela Ka'afa Damya, Vitami the Parish, Shalei Parish Daite Kazayis. In other words, without the reason we wanted the Shaila remained a teku above was the Shaila about eating Offer. Eating offer is the same thing as eating the velas and treifas. And the only reason the shul will be chal by eating, what is yadas? By the velas and treifas, yadas is on a kazayas, right? That's why you be mushba v'oimid. The share only works less than a kazayas. So let's be poishit. If you make a shua not to eat dirt, the share will be what? A kazayas, similar to shkatzim or mashim. Says Merloi, afal la barachilahu, klal. You win it, guys. You're mixing up a physical mitzias versus a halachic mitzias. You know why you don't eat dirt? Not because it's asa, because it's dirt. Nevela could be very geschmack. You take a look at a cheeseburger from McDonald's, right? Could be very schmack. It's nevela, it's possible chalav. The reason you're not eating it is not because it's not a barachila. The reason you're not eating it because it's asa. There's a difference. So good, the shear over there is kazayas, but ken zayin, where it's what? It's offer, then the share would not. You can be pushed to the shaila. Maybe the share would be less. Says Gemara, offer la bar achila hu klau. Nevela bas achila, and nevela is a bas achila. The aryehu de rava alave, and there's a lion lying on it. The lion is a Hakadosh Baruch Hu's tzivoy. So the Yotzim Dvarenu, where we had this, we entered the whether yesh mila b'kanamis, aim b'kanamis, the main sugi is in the darim. We discussed it over here vis-a-vis the machloikas between Rabbi and the Chachamim. According to the first lashon, the Chachamim say what? Yesh mila. According to the second lashon, ein mila. According to Rabbi, ein mila, and he was adding the word the Chachamim. We had in addition, we had the shaila of Rav Papa. We had two terutzim. Rav Papa's chidush in the machloikas between Rabbi and the Chachamim, where Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim, where Rabbi Akiva said kolshu and the Chachamim said what? Kazayas. Reb Meir said, Reb Papa said, the Chacham will be moida by kainim. Two terutzim. One, it's speaking what we use lashon of achila. Since you use lashon of achila, it's mitzdaref the two. But we had a stira. Why? Because it said kainim is mitzdaref. Another teretz was kainim is mitzdaref le'inyan what? Le'inyan malchus. That's what Reb Papa meant. When the Brisa said it's mitzdaref, it meant le'inyan what? Shava pruta le'inyan meila. Okay, very good shmak. Okay, let me get a Tehillim. Say a kapitel. Oh, still.